Hello, and welcome to the tour of the Woodlands of Esker. I'll be your tour guide, Ronan. As you can see behind me, this is the main entrance to the in-game area. From this little red shack onward will be all in-game at the Woodlands of Esker. Now let's go see some of the sights. Now, when you're coming into Camp Sinewa, as I am standing on Camp Sinewa Road, when you're coming into the Woodlands of Esker, if you turn right, you will go into the woodlands. Everything that is in-game is to the right. Parking and out-of-game area is to your left. Continuing our tour of the Woodlands of Esker, this is the main parking lot. This is out of game. This is where you will need to park your vehicles, motorcycles, RVs, or anything else that you may use transportation-wise to get here. If you're coming by bicycle, good luck. Again, when you come down Camp Sinewa Road, if you turn right, you will go into the Woodlands of Esker, the in-game area. If you turn left, this is the out-of-game parking area. And also, it has quite a large area for out-of-game camping as well. In case you are wondering, this is the address to Camp Sinewa, or the Woodlands of Esker. Just look for the giant power lines, and if you can't hear it on the mic, they're actually crackling right now. Let's go into the woodlands. This way. Now, as you come in to Camp Sinewa, the Woodlands of Esker, you will actually see our LarpCraft banner. It is not here right now, but you will know when you're in the right area because you will see a large banner that says LarpCraft on it. That's how you know you're in the right place. So, let's go. Welcome to the registration area for the Woodlands of Esker. Now, registration may be in the little red shack, or it may be right here in front of it. As the timing of this video, we're not quite sure if we can use the shack for registration, but we'll find out and let you know. We here at the Inland Waters Colony actually pay to use the Woodlands of Esker. So, if you'd like to help us out and help out Camp Sinewa in general, please feel free to leave a little extra something in the box. Right behind the registration building is one of the best kept secrets of the Woodlands of Esker. This happens to be the cleanest bathroom in the entire realm. And as you can tell, it is for men, women, and the handicapped. Whoa. Before we go into the woodlands, let's check out the shower house. I know I need one. Let's go. Now, when you arrive at the Woodlands of Esker, and you are going to park in the out-of-game parking area, like everybody should be, do not go further into the camp. Go directly into the parking area. If you're thinking about driving to the shower house, please don't. Again, beyond a certain, I would have to say the Camp Sinewa sign, welcome, right there, is beyond that is private property, and we do not want cars going beyond that. So you will have to walk to the shower house. But it's not far, luckily. Let's go. Now, as we head to the shower house, you'll see behind me the out-of-game camping area. Now, you will probably notice that there will be a large RV out here. It may also have outdoor showers for you to use. Now, the RV itself is set up mainly to be used by the admins and the overlords as a staging area to get everything in the game ready for your enjoyment. We do this so we can spend less time talking about things that aren't relevant in the realm. although you're not supposed to drive this far with your car, there are a few signs here. Park only in designated areas. You're going to be parking in the out-of-game parking area. Maintain a speed of 10 miles per hour. You won't be driving your car up here. However, see rangers before hunting. Well, if you're only hunting orcs. Now behind me you see the Camp Sinawal Road. Beyond that is the Woodlands of Esker, the in-game area. And we have made it all the way up the trail to the top of the hill, basically. Now, once you reach the top of the hill, you'll see the main lodge. The main lodge is not accessible at this time. However, again, we're looking for the showers. It's behind the main lodge. Let's go. The main lodge actually has a path behind it. Now, to get to the showers, you follow this path and basically stay on it. Camp Sinawal also has multiple cabins on this side of the facility that are able to be rented by people. So, when you're coming over here for a shower or to get things out of your car, you may actually come across people that are not in the game, muggles, and they may stop and ask you questions. They may not. Anyway, we're just letting you know that you may come across other people that are not part of the game experience. Which way is the shower? Up?
That way.
This way?
That way.
Alright, we've reached the shower house. Now inside, it has a restroom, 2 sinks, and a full shower facility. Now let's look at the other side, because there's actually 2 showers here, but they are separated by a wall.
Is it an epic wall?
It is not an epic wall.
Is it legendary?
Again, wipe your feet.
Does it have special powers?
It does have a toilet, 2 sinks, and a shower. Everything you need for out in the woods. We try to be responsible with the realm that we have been given, and all of the things that go into making that include, if you make a mess, clean it up. So if you're in the shower and you make a big mess, please leave it the way you found it. If at the time of the event the main lodge is not rented, there is another bathroom on this side of the Camp Sinawal.
No, that door.
Not that door. This door. We just came through that door, and there are 2 more commercial size bathrooms, like something you'd find more in a department store for more people to use. There's also a water fountain if you need a drink. Now again, what we want you to do and what we need you to do is, if you make a mess, again, clean it up, leave it the way you found it, and when you leave, turn off the lights. Okay, you can turn them back on now. Okay, thank you. When you come in and when you leave, I don't know how you would do it when you leave, but try not to track mud in here. If your shoes are muddy and your boots are muddy, leave them outside. You can always put them back on. And again, make a mess, clean up after yourself. I hurt my knuckles.
Yay.
Whoa!
Glitter.
Wow! Looks like the fairies were here already.
Oh my god.
Glitter. Oh no.
Once you're in the Woodlands of Esker, you may see the big blue dragon, or tractor, coming in and out of the realm. Ranger John drives this beast. His word is the word of the Supreme Almighty. If he says to do something, you need to do it, because it's his land, it's his tractor, and more than likely, he's bringing you wood for your fire. in case of severe weather, Ranger John's going to come in and let us know that we have to move to the dormitory, which is, again, near the shower house that you just saw. That is to protect people from tornadoes, high winds, things along those lines. That's just to make sure that we're safe and you're safe. Let's go. This time, well, we've seen all of the modern amenities that the Woodlands of Esker has to offer. Now, let's look more on the primitive side. This is where the game will actually happen. This is where the game will take place. This is where lives will be broken, spirits will be smashed, and if you're lucky, you'll walk away with a little gold in your pocket. Now, on your way into the Woodlands of Esker, you're going to come across campsites. This happens to be the first one. It's called Sugar Maple. It's actually a very nice, well-kept campsite, and that's because a lot of Boy Scouts and things do come out here every once in a while, and this is the main campsite that they use. This is claimable and able to be used by anyone. Let's take a look. Upon occasion, you may come across other commentary. Not necessarily my voice, it's the person behind the camera, and that's our tenant.
Hello.
Now, when you come into a campsite, there may be fallen branches, there may be a wood pile, there may not be a wood pile. This particular campsite does not have a wood pile, so wood would actually have to be brought in, again, by Ranger John. Now, when you're surveying your campsites, you need to look for places that you can place a tent, where the fire pit is. Does it have seating? This particular campsite has seating. It has logs set out and picnic tables. If you need picnic tables at a campsite that you choose, they can be brought in as well. This is the only campsite with power hookups. We would prefer that this campsite be left for vendors so they can run their vending apparatuses and anything else that they may need power for. Maybe they're selling cold drinks or something like that. They need to run a small refrigerators or something along those lines. But again, this is the first campsite. It's Sugar Maple. It also has behind Bucky, you can actually see a little trail, and that's actually a back road. Let's go take a look at that and see where that goes. The reason that we call this the Woodlands of Esker is also because it's an esker. It was carved out by a glacier thousands and thousands of years ago. Now, throughout the realm, you're going to come across boulders, big rocks in the ground, laying on the ground. And what you need to do is you definitely want to make sure that you watch your footing, because it's quite easy to trip over one of these, and that's just going to ruin your whole day. So, again, watch out for the rocks, watch out for the boulders. Kind of a common sense thing, but a little history of the Woodlands of Esker. We're on the back side of Sugar Maple, and this is the path we were talking about. Now, you can use this path, but anything beyond it is out of game. It's actually private property beyond this trail, and that goes for all of the outer trails throughout the Woodlands of Esker. Anything coming into the woodlands is fine. You just can't go past the outside. Well, there's a small buffer area, but you basically want to stay on the trails or move inwards to the inside of the Woodlands of Esker. You don't want to go beyond the path.
The woodlands have a lot of bugs. That's because there are natural ponds in this property from the Esker Formation. Having bug juice is a definite essential. Do not go anywhere without bug juice. We may have it for sale here, but it will probably cost a lot of money because we have limited supply. But just bring your bug juice with you. Try to keep the modern container out of sight at all times if you can.
This is the Battlegrounds of Esker. Lives are destroyed, families are crushed, and the spirits are sent to the gods here. As you can tell, I'm a little excited. Seeing as how this is the Battlegrounds, in smaller events, it's actually used as the main parking lot. But the bigger events, it's actually the Battlegrounds. People will fight here to the death. Groups of people will fight here to the death. It's actually located just past Sugar Maple along the main road as you come in. Now, certain parts of it, like behind me, may have like a barracks or the Battlegrounds encampment or something along those lines. It's actually a campsite back there. In smaller games, this is the out-of-game area, and this is where you can place your out-of-game tents and things along those lines. But like I said, in large events, this is actually the Battlegrounds. Tournaments are held here. Battles for supremacy, to claim land, to take land from somebody else. I want your land. Let's settle this in the battleground. Now, from here, there are two separate ways to get actually into the realm. And let's look at those right now. You can see that from the Battlegrounds there is a path that leads into the woods, and this leads to one campsite in particular, and then the trail connects to more trails. On this side, this is a fairly long straight road that goes down to another campsite that's already been claimed, I believe, and it also connects with the trails that go into the woodlands. Saddle up, put your big boy shorts on, and we're going to go into the woodlands. From here, we're sending one of our scouts out to check this trail to make sure it's all right. We, me and you, together, gonna head down the main trail to Trillium. Alright, we're about halfway to Trillium, and we wanted to bring you a special bulletin, special note that you need to be very aware of. Now, this trail is wide enough. We've brushed it. We've cut back the forest to allow people to actually bring their cars further in, but once game is on, you can't bring your cars back here. It just kills immersion like you would not believe. Again, before the game starts, you can feel free, if your campsite is around here, feel free to bring your car in, drop off everything that you're going to need, because it is going to be quite an adventure to get back into some of those other areas. Alright, another note, special bulletin again. All of the roads in the Woodlands of Esker are dirt roads. So, if it rains, maybe a little bit, maybe it's a heavy rain, but either way, you're not going to be able to get cars further down into the woodlands than probably about right here. Trucks should be able to make it. You got four-wheel drive, it's even better. Just remember, everything around here is a dirt road, so when it rains it's gonna get muddy. Cars ain't gonna make it. And we're here. This is the second campsite. It's called Trillium. Now, this campsite is actually fairly basic compared to the other one. As you can see, it's pretty much just a open area. There's not a lot in the way of trees unless you get further back around, and it's actually quite small. This would actually work better if you have a small group, if you have like maybe a group of rogues can use this. I mean, it's not very big, so everything's going to be more condensed, more around. It does have a fire pit. It has, at this current time, one picnic table. Again, more can be brought in if you need it, and more wood can be brought in as well. So Trillium does have one very important function. It is your gateway into the rest of the realm, and as such, most people have to pass right through here. This would be a great place to set up something to, you must pay a tax or you must pay a toll. And again, that's going to cause some conflict, and that's what we're looking for.
Because remember, if we don't get no tolls,
we don't eat no rolls. Alright, we've just passed Trillium. And when I say just passed, I mean we're about 5 steps away from it. Remember when I was saying that it's the gateway into the realm? Now, to my right, this is your main entrance into the back side of the realm. There are no campsites going down this way, so this is where most people would enter into the realm if they're not going further into, get more into the campsites. To my left, you'll see in the background is the pump house. We'll explain that a little bit in more detail when we get down there to it. But this is the way to more of the campsites that are deeper into the woodlands. Throughout the Woodlands of Esker, you're going to see posts with numbers on them. Now, these can actually come in quite handy for referencing where you are. If you happen to, you may have taken 2 lefts instead of a left and a right. There are quite a few of these out in the realm, and they are good references so you don't get lost. Although getting lost in the woodlands is not too big of a deal, because all of the trails and the roads basically just wind around back on themselves. So, moving a little bit further on, we're getting closer to the pump house. Now let me explain the pump house real quick. The pump house itself does not have drinkable, potable water. The water can be taken from this, boiled, and then drank, or if you're just washing something or using it for props or brewing or something along those lines, please feel free to use the water that is in this pump. Again, it's not been tested for being potable, so we do not recommend that anybody drink the water from here, unless you boil it first, and then by any means, please. Let's take a look inside. There's a small little switch right here. Not a switch, it's actually just a little piece of wood. Flip it over, pull it open. And as you can see, it's just your basic well pump, and you can actually get a pretty decent amount of water out of this. Though it will take a few moments. Let's go check out the rest of those campsites. Throughout the realm, you may also find signs. These signs are a great way, as well as reference points, like I showed you with the numbered posts, to find out where you are and where you need to go. Now, as you can tell, these signs are actually quite modern looking. So in more medieval games, we may cover these, or we may actually put medieval looking signs on here with different names. But still, it's still a great way to figure out the direction that you need to go if you happen to be slightly confused as to where you are. Now, we're actually right next to another campsite, which is right next to the pump house. This is also a great place to note, because it is also a crossroads. This way will take you along the trails on this side of the woodlands. This way will take you back to Trillium. And if you'll bear with me 1 second, this way will take you back further into the woodlands, again, all of these trails link up with one another, and they all basically make very large loops. So keep walking in one direction, you'll find somebody. This campsite is called Wild Turkey. Though this one's not for drinking, this one's actually for using. As you can see, this campsite has been used in actually several of our last events here. This was the House of the Iron Ring's former home base. We have multiple picnic tables, multiple wood piles, and this particular campsite is noteworthy as it has two separate entrances. One near the fork, which is just down the road there, and the one I'm standing in right now, which is just a little bit further up. A little harder to defend, easier to get out of if you need to. Also, this would be a good time to explain fires, open fires. You are perfectly allowed to have open fires, wood fires, but if you're going to do so, you must, and dare I say again, must, have a fire extinguisher available, and it must be attended at all times.
What happens if an open fire is seen without somebody attending it?
It is immediately extinguished.
What happens to the team that's in there?
They are fined heavily
Or
in XP, or they may be even asked to leave the game. Alright, let's continue our travels from Wild Turkey deeper into the Woodlands of Esker. One other very noteworthy thing to know about the Woodlands of Esker, there are a lot of elevation changes. We have everything here from swamps to quite tall hills here. And they're fairly spread out. There's not just one section that is hilly and one section that is, lowlands. You'll notice again, there are a lot of rocks around. Watching your footing is very important. And I've said it many times before, all of the trails intertwine and connect with each other. So getting lost is not that easy to do. Where we're going to go now is we're actually going to show you one of the many actual outhouse bathrooms that are in the realm, and the location of the House of the Iron Ring. Bushwhacking? Yes, you can do it in the Woodlands of Esker. You'll see wood laying all over the ground. Wood on the ground is perfectly fine to take, to use for your fire. You want to build like a little primitive lean-to, things along that lines, that's fine. However, do not cut down any of the standing trees. The bushes and things, sure, you can cut this down, that's fine. But any ground lying wood, or wood lying on the ground I should say, is perfectly fine to pick up and use for things that you would like to build, put it in your fire. Maybe you have a quest to go find more firewood and you're going to assign XP or give coin for it. Things along those lines are great little side mini quests to keep people occupied throughout the day. Alright. Now, if you'll remember the first thing I said in the Battlegrounds was that trail that we sent our scout down. This happens to be where it ends. It's right on the main path that we just came from Wild Turkey. We're going to go down this path to show you the House of the Iron Ring's new location. But before I do, I want to let you know that most of the time, your feasts or anything else that you would be giving to the players, like for food, water, things along those lines, has a central location that if they're in this area, they can go to that place and get that. Now, that's going to actually be held at the House of the Iron Ring's new site, maybe different in a different location. Camps may have their own food. They may not need it, but it will be there and provided for people that do. Now let's go check out that site and show you those bathrooms.
Hey, where does that path go?
That path leads to one more campsite and down into the Swamp of Sorrows. And we're going to get to that in just a minute. Pause for commercial break.
Hey Ronan,
Hey,
you want to tell us about the outhouse?
absolutely. Throughout the Woodlands of Esker, there are 4 separate outhouses. Some of them are kind of cozy because they don't have a dividing wall, and if there's more than one of you in there, you might want to be holding hands because you're going to be that close. Some of them do have dividing walls, a couple of them don't, but at least there are privies in the Woodlands of Esker.
Do they have TP in them?
No! All of the outhouses, because we are out in the wilderness, the raccoons and chipmunks and squirrels and lots of the other creatures like to actually use toilet paper to build their nests, or to eat, or to build something with. But as such, there is no toilet paper actually left inside the outhouses. You need to bring your own, or suffer the consequences. Let's go right across the path and look at the House of the Iron Ring. I'm not going to say it was. That might be a reason that we chose this place. Welcome to Tall Oak, House of the Iron Ring's home.
Iron rings? Really?
Iron. Iron. I need water. I need something. Maybe back to the outhouse, I'm not sure. Breakfast may not be sitting right. Tall Oak, House of the Iron Ring's new home.
Okay, here is Tall Oak, and we'll have camping areas set up, we'll have vending areas set up, and what you'll usually find in each camp, whether it's ours or anyone else's, there's going to be usually specific camp areas for your blacksmiths, for your other professions, your alchemists, your potion makers, you know, whatever, enchanting, all that stuff will be laid out in the camp. Some will be marked, some won't. It depends on the player's props. Again, anytime you do have a campfire, you must have somebody near it, or you could get expelled from the game or banned from the entire system. It's that important. The other mention with campfires is if it's really dry, we may nix campfires altogether and only have one main campfire at one area. But it's important to have that fire extinguisher hidden somewhere close, or, you know, some of these have the caps. So if you take a look over here, there's actually an extinguishing cap on this one. Some of the camps still have those, and they're a great way to quickly extinguish a fire. This area, you'll notice, doesn't have very good seating, so we're going to have to bring seating into this one because this is all degraded. And but it does have a pretty decent supply of wood. When you're picking out a camp, this is another one of those that are kind of difficult because if you get raided, there's really nowhere to go. I mean, you can bushwhack through some areas, but there's really no good trail. When you put your tent up or put up anything, look above you into the trees. Make sure there's no widowmakers. And what we mean by widowmakers is a branch that's caught on another branch that's ready to fall, where a little bit of wind could knock it down and kill you. It's a very big deal. So before you set up a camp or your vending area, look up into the trees and make sure that, you know, nothing's going to fall on you in the event of a storm that passes through, or just simple wind.
Claiming your site.
If you're going to claim your site, basically if it's unclaimed, all you have to do is put up your standard or your banner for your guild, faction, tribe, whatever. if you want to claim an area or challenge for an area, let's say this is the House of the Iron Ring, it's claimed. If you want to challenge for this campsite, you would stake your claim as well and say challenge. What it does is it allows then, what we have to do is bring all of the players from both of the groups to the battlefield, and you battle it to the death for that area. If you win the challenge, you can then stake your claim for the next game. And we do that simply because claims for land, if you have a ton of props in here, and sometimes it takes 3, 4, or 5 hours to set some of these up if they're a real immersed game. And we don't want you having to tear that all down again and put it all back up. You could literally lose half the game just by setup and tear down. So you'll get it the next game. You can rename it. You tell the elders what you want it to be called. They change it on the map. You can put the storyline in on the scrolls under the Woodlands of Esker, and you know, keep the game going between actual events. This is also a wilderness area that does allow some hunting. So there are some points in time where we don't have games in certain seasons because we have some hunters that come back here as well.
Ronan, back at you here. If you take a left from Tall Oak, that'll take you right back to the Battlegrounds. Remember the scout that we sent? That's the trail that he came down. All right, we're back at the crossroads leading from Tall Oak and Wild Turkey. We're going to go check out another campsite. It's called White Pine. It's a little ways down the road, so I'll see you when we get there. Welcome back. We've reached White Pine. It's a fairly small campsite. It's roughly at the top of a hill, which makes it exceptionally good for being able to defend. Let's go take a look at it real quick. This campsite is actually set back a little ways from the main trail, which is good for laying, say, traps across the trail, or maybe an early warning device of some form or fashion, so you know somebody's coming up to your campsite. Again, this is White Pine, and as you can see, it's not very large. This would make an excellent campsite for an NPC camp, or maybe a monster base, or things along those lines. And we may set it up that way, elders and overlords may actually set it up that way for this to be used. Or maybe this one is already claimed. At the moment, I'm not currently aware of anybody that has claimed this site. They may have already, so when you get here you might want to check. Or if you want it yourself, you can always challenge the people that have claimed it in the Battlegrounds. When you're out on the trails, you may actually come across bandit camps that aren't set up in campsites. They may be set up back over in here, maybe a little bit down in the valley there, and they'll have their own people out looking for people to rob or people to kill and things along those lines. It may be a beast camp, or it may be a beast family that's living back there, and you're intruding on their lands. The possibilities are numerous, to say the least, on the type of things that you may find out in the Woodlands of Esker. Now, between White Pine, which you just saw, and Wild Turkey, there's actually another offshoot. This is a trail, however it does run down into the main road of Camp Sinawah Road. So if you go down this far enough, you're going to run into the road and you'll be out of game. And nobody likes that, because it causes us to come out of game. You don't want that. Welcome, my friends, to the end of the world. This gate represents the end of playable area. When you go down that path that I said just a few moments ago, we don't really go down that path because it ends right back out at the road. And as you can see, right behind me, there's the road. It is gated, so people cannot come in here. we bring vehicles in here, I should say. But again, this is the end of the line, end of the world. Nothing beyond here exists.
What's on this trail?
On this trail is a few small little ponds. One large pond, which is right near the top of the hill. And if it has really rained quite substantially, or maybe it's early in the year and all the snow has just melted, this trail, quite a ways down, but still about 3/4 of the way down to this gate, is impassable. There will be mud up to your waist and probably water on top of that up to your chest. It's a small little valley, and it can be used in game. Just remember, when you get to the gate, that's it. Another little side note, more than likely of interest to a lot of people. In the Woodlands of Esker, you are definitely not, and I'll say it one more time, not going to want to wear shorts. You're going to want to wear some form of full leg covering, because as you can see, I've got these seeds and briars and everything else attached to my pants. And the cameraman himself, our tenant, has a mic on the camera, and not only that, but his pants are covered in them too. But he has a mic on the camera, and he happened to have the camera facing down and happened to brush up against one of these bushes or trees or something, and these little things they're not sticky, as in like will stick your skin, but they're sticky to the point where they stick on your clothing very, very well. So again, there may be thorn bushes out there, there may be saplings that can whip you and cut you real good. You want to wear long pants in the Woodlands of Esker. On a safety note, not that you would want to jump into this anyway, even if it was a hot day, stay out of the ponds, waters, things along those lines. If it's a creek or a river or things along those lines, stay away from it. Don't put anything quest item wise, don't put anything lootable or pick upable near the waters or the ponds or the rivers or the creeks or the streams or anything. That's just begging for disaster. So remember this one thing: water, bad. We're back near the pump house. Wild turkey. Trillium is right off to my right, but behind me are some of the best campsites I've ever seen. Now, as you'll notice, coming down this road, again, going back to the having a vehicle before game down here. Now, if it has been raining quite a bit, and this has happened, this area right here, especially this really low-lying area that we're standing in right now, will actually be very, very sloppy. And as you can tell, there's not much of a shoulder here, so a car could easily go off of this. So, again, safety in mind, and a blue jay feather in hand. Cars in the Woodlands of Esker on muddy roads, not a good idea. Let's go a little further. We'll check out these campsites. This episode of LarpCraft is brought to you by Bug Juice. Don't go anywhere without it, or else they'll take you away. Our next stop on this adventure through the Woodlands of Esker is Campsite 6, Bobcat. This site is actually not too bad. A little on the smaller side, but you're right along the main thoroughfare if people are coming down to the campsites a little bit further down the trail. Also, it has an outhouse very close to it. Something to keep in mind after you've been drinking a lot of ale at night. Let's go look at this in a little more detail. Now, as you'll notice coming into Bobcat, it's not as long as a entryway is, say, white pine. But as you can tell, there's quite a bit of room for several tents. Maybe even a small, very small little tavern setting. Possibly maybe like a little one house thing. So this is Bobcat. Let's go on to the next. We here as elders at the Woodlands of Esker make sure that the privies are clean as well as we can make them for you to use before every event. So, when you see some of those hard-working folks that put together some of these events, be sure and tell them, thank you. I didn't have to wipe twice. Now, we've just left Bobcat. And actually, not too far down the trail is our next. And as you can see, we're covered with these little seeds. So, again, don't wear shorts and try to avoid the, I'll worry about that later. Try to avoid the thorn bushes as much as possible. Again, let's get back to the campsites. Just down from Bobcat is our next campsite. It's actually called Whitetail, after a deer, I'm assuming. Now, this campsite is actually very small, and it is fairly open as well. And with every campsite that you go to, as our tenant has already mentioned, you want to make sure that there's no widowmakers or large branches, possibly even like this one, that may come down and fall on you. In the night, in a windstorm, it doesn't matter. These things fall all the time. Here we are at Whitetail. It's just your basic cut out, just like Trillium was. Not a whole lot to tell about this campsite. So let's move on to our next one. Good day, mates. We've reached the Outback. No, just kidding. We're not in Australia. I kind of wish we were. But Outback as a campsite is quite nice. It's a little bit close to a pond, so you may have a problem with bugs, but Bug Juice will take care of that. Remember our sponsor? Let's go take a look at the Outback. Now, with white pine, Outback is kind of the same way. It does have a longer entryway to get to the actual campsite. It's a little bit on the smaller side, but still being so close to the other campsites, this would make a great place for allies that have your different guilds or your different factions or things along those lines that are allied can concentrate on a single area. It does have a tree kind of in the middle of it, so you do have two paths that go around it, and yeah, it's pretty much the Outback. So as you can see, not exceptionally big, but it might be right for you. Now we're almost at the end of our tour of the campsites of the Woodlands of Esker, but I wanted to make sure and show you one of the biggest campsites available. It's called Timberwolf, and as you can see, it is a very large area indeed. Now we actually did use this as our main campsite as in the first game that we held out here at the Woodlands of Esker. We did find that it was a little bit too far back to be effective with all the stuff happening elsewhere in the realm. So we have specifically moved further back into the beginning of the Woodlands of Esker to say, so we could be more focused around where everybody else would be. Now, the sheer size of this is immense. And it would work out great for a very large guild or a very large faction, as there are multiple sites that can be put up for tents. And again, being so close to Outback, Eagle, and a few other campsites a little bit further back, they can be all combined together if you'd like, and your allies can be near you. Now, one of the great things about being in this area, near Timberwolf, Outback, Eagle's a little bit further down, it's not much to look at, so we're just going to skip that, is there is a toilet here as well. Now, this is one of those that there's actually a divider. There are two separate doors and two separate entrances and two separate toilets. So if you want a little privacy, this is the toilet for you. Let's take a look at Eagle, just for the sake of saying that we did. At the first event that we held here, I personally, as well as Odin, that you may have seen in other videos, actually camped down here at this site. It's not a very large site, but there is enough room if your tents are small enough to actually have maybe 3-4 tents and a little extra room left over for a couple of picnic tables. Now here we are coming into Eagle. What does make this campsite hard to use is there is a big stump right in the middle of it. So, like I said, you may have room for 3-4 small tents, maybe a little crafting area if you need it, but other than that, this campsite's wide open and ready to be claimed. And last, but certainly not least, on our tour of the campsites of the Woodlands of Esker is Campsite Bear. I believe this one has already been claimed by a vicious band of orcs. So, if you want to challenge them for it, go right ahead. Personally, I wouldn't. But this can actually be used in conjunction with Timberwolf. It can be made into one very large campsite if you're so inclined to do so. Bear is situated pretty much on like a little rise. The fire pit is very nice, and it has a very nice overlook of a pond. So it may be a little bit buggy, but other than that, it's a very nice campsite. As I said before, near the pump house there was a path that led all the way around to the back side of the realm. This path actually cuts right in half. So that trail will actually link up with this one, or you can go straight and it will come back down here and lead straight to these campsites. Great way for ambushing somebody if they're only expecting you to come from one direction. And there you have it, my friends, the Woodlands of Esker. All the campsites have been shown, the battlegrounds, how to get here, the address, where to shower, where to park. I'm Ronan. This has been a LarpCraft video. We'll see you on the field.
Felt really nice.
Ye olde shithouse.
They're coming!
You can
It's a
make
whole
it.
horde of them! It's a whole horde of them!
Are you alright?
I can't do it! I can't do it! I can't!
You're
It hurts.
hurting. You're going to lay down. Lay down.
Ah! me! Ah! Ah!
Stop it! It's done! Get up!
I can't do it! I can't do it! No! 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 I can't!
You will!
Okay!
We will!
Okay!
Get your mind right, man! The bleeding has stopped!
It hurts!
It's gonna hurt!
I don't want
It's gonna hurt! Use the pain!
No!
Use the pain!
No! If we don't, they all die. That whole village. We have to save them. We have to save them.
Let's go!